Coming up on Tech News today, guess who's getting in-app payments for the phone operating system? Besides Google. Also, Microsoft writing to Google's aid on the whole H.264 playback in Chrome situation, and our thoughts on the Daily, or as I like to call it, the Yester-Daily. And all that and more coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT. Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, February 2nd, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by MailRoute.info. MailRoute is a secure hosted service that provides enterprise-grade virus and spam filtering to companies of any size. Try it right now, absolutely free, at MailRoute.info. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I am Becky Worley.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And joining us today from the great state of Texas, Mr. Dwight Silverman, tech reporter from the Houston Chronicle.
Yeah.
Hey. Actually, it's a very cold state of Texas. It's we were in like 19 degrees this morning.
19 degrees in Houston?
Yes, and we are forecast to have about a 60% chance of snow on Thursday night and Friday.
When it gets
1 to 3 inches.
When it gets 19 degrees in Houston, does all the humidity just turn into ice and fall to the ground?
That's right. You hear a nice tinkling sound outside.
The chat room has just said that we are not allowed to talk about the weather in California as the rest of the country.
No, we are.
It's probably a safe bet.
We are legally prohibited from
We will
that.
say nothing.
Instead,
Be kind.
Instead, let's talk about Honeycomb. Honeycomb's got big features.
Not the cereal,
They
right?
announced it. Oh, we're talking about the operating system?
Yeah,
Never mind.
Okay.
Honeycomb was announced this morning in a ceremony, in a press conference. Google unveiled Android 3.0, as it is officially known. And this was mostly a developer's announcement.
Yeah, I mean, I think Steve Jobs has set the bar way too high for consumers and reporters who expect every product announcement to involve jaw-dropping, revolutionary
So why do a
iterations.
90-minute announcement then, which sets your expectations up that high, and just put out a video or something?
Well, I actually think that it did call attention. It was sort of crystallizing. And, this is the tablet-optimized Android. What does that mean? What is that going to look like? And so much of it was UI that I think an actual demonstration was valuable.
Three big points. Backwards compatibility. So anything you buy on the Android OS now will run on Honeycomb. And we think vice versa, although we're still a little unclear on that. You found out that it actually is double pixeled, although it looked great on the Motorola Zoom, which they were using for the demonstration.
Yeah, they were ambiguous about what the actual technology was, whereby the smaller screen size was stretched, if you will. But if you're using a Froyo-developed app on a tablet that's running Honeycomb, it will just pixel double. And if the developer wants to go back with the new SDK and then optimize for tablet, they can do so. And they said it's pretty easy to do so. But it did look really good. And we saw it on the Zoom, Motorola's tablet, which is 11 inches? What is
10.1.
10.1.
Yeah.
And somebody online said the big headline that we're all burying is, the Zoom isn't vaporware. It really works. It's here.
Yeah.
So Becky, did you get a chance to actually see it?
We just
Yourself?
watched it on the feed that came off of YouTube, and it was snappy. I thought the performance was pretty darn good. What'd you think, Tom?
Yeah, I was impressed by the performance of it. The other two, the main elements of the announcement were pretty impressive as well. We're going to see in-app payments now, which I thought was a little bit more complex than what iOS users may be used to. And we're also we're going to see some more developer hooks. They talked about fragments that allow you to have some features show up if it's in tablet mode, other features to show up if it's on a phone. But the biggest thing for consumers is you can go to the web and choose to install a program, and it will just show up over the air on your phone without you having to sync it or go to the phone and do anything. Dwight, don't you think that's going to be the biggest deal for folks who are consumers of Android phones?
Well, I think that also exposes the Android market to people who might be thinking about getting an Android phone. You can now go in there and actually see what's in the Android market. Before, it was kind of a walled-off area unless you had the phone. This looks similar to the web app store that Google also has, which then syncs. If you have Chrome, it syncs across multiple Chrome browsers. So it's probably that same kind of technology. It now just puts it on your phone. Now, if they would just give Android a decent browser that was as good as Chrome is.
And they did a demonstration where they picked an app and then showed it appearing on the phone, and they had a really good connection going. I'm sure it was over Wi-Fi, but it was instantaneous. I mean, he said install the app, and then within a second or two, it was showing up on the phone. So
in the past, if you wanted an app, you would go on your mobile device and you would go to the marketplace and you'd pull it down. Great, no problem. It's wireless. But what I think is neat about this and the functionality you just talked about, Tom, is that when you're browsing, when you're searching, when you're sort of just cruising for apps, it's so much better to do it on a computer. The expanded screen real estate, it lets you see more sort of indicators of whether or not it's a good product, whether it's reviews from other people, whether it's ratings and metrics if it's most successful or what the top 5 are. And I just thought for browsing, this is great. So it tells you if you already have it installed. That's one of the things that it does. It lets you choose which of your Android devices you want to install it on remotely. And then when you fire up that device, it gives you a notification and boom, click, it goes down. Plus all that payment stuff is done through the computer. I think to have that kind of duality is a great thing.
And you don't have to do anything for it. It just starts installing on your phone. They showed it. It was actually locked. You could see the 911, option there because they hadn't unlocked it, and it still showed it like, yeah, it'll be there as soon as you're ready to use it. Other things were a little smaller announcements, things that you may have seen in other demonstrations of Honeycomb, the way the interface works. Kind of I don't know about you, Dwight, but it kind of reminded me of Windows Live Desktop, the way they have the widgets on there and the things in the background. I think the more interesting part of it was the gestural control, which requires that you don't have to ever use a button.
Yes, and one of the things that Honeycomb reminds me of, I saw a little bit of it at CES, and there's been videos on the web of it, and there's been a developer page that had a lot of this information out already on the web. A lot of it reminds me of some of the features of the Web OS. Of course, one of the designers of the original Web OS now works for Google and has been working on Honeycomb.
Well, there you go. That's
right, like that, for example, that particular screenshot you're showing right there is very Web OS-like.
So it's the sort of cover flow look at music, but instead of the cover flow parallel, you see it at a diagonal as the cards, like you're saying, the WebOS card metaphor starts to move forward. That and the fact that it was very good, like you said, Chrome OS-like. On the web version is some style that we haven't normally associated with Google. Like they're doing good design work here.
I know Gina Trapani was really disappointed that they didn't have a big upgrade to the music store, but they did talk about video calls. And one of the better little side notes was that they tried to call someone whose screen name was Lady Killer, but it was a major demo fail in that they couldn't get the person to come up.
He wasn't online.
I know.
It wasn't so much of a demo fail as a guest fail.
Yeah, but that's the same smell. And so this was like the recurring theme of who is Lady Killer? Lady Killer was said far too often during the press conference. It turned out to be CeeLo, and that was sort of the...
Yeah, forget him.
Yeah, end of the... No more celebrities. So
you notice how they made sure to take his call once he was online because they had paid for him to be on that presentation. Damn it!
We bought us a hip hop rapper pop dude. We're gonna do it.
On a side note, those of you who are BlackBerry fans will probably be happy to know that AppWorld 2.1 is coming out to your BlackBerry today and includes in-app payments too. So the in-app payment part of the Google announcement, you can raise your hand and say, "Oh yeah, we got that. We don't have to wait for Honeycomb."
Nah.
We got that already.
Yeah.
The other big press announcement this morning, earlier today in New York, Rupert Murdoch and friends got up on stage to launch The Daily. This is the News Corp attempt to do an iPad newspaper. It will give you, it'll deliver itself once a day, sometimes with updates throughout the day, 99 cents weekly subscription or $40 per year if you'd like to subscribe in advance. Pretty cheap, but pretty cheap. I mean, my impression is it's pretty, but I don't see the need for it. Dwight, you wrote up a quick take on this, right? What do you think?
Well, it is very slick. It is very pretty. And some of the UI touches are really unusual. It's a little slow. It's laggy. I've had it crash a few times on me. But probably the worst thing about it is that the content, by the time you get to it, is stale. It is indeed yesterday's news. They give you a dump of the day's news in the wee hours. You open it up, and there it is. Or there it's not.
Or it's being delivered, as I'm getting
delivered.
right now.
Issue being delivered.
You know, at one point, I was looking at their lead story is on Egypt. It was on Mubarak's announcement yesterday that he was going to not run again. Today, all hell is broken loose in Cairo. It's chaos over there, and that was missing from this post. Everything happened yesterday in this story, and at one point, I was seeing that you're getting a new edition, and I thought, oh, good, it's going to be updated. The app then crashed, and then when I brought it back up, the new story wasn't there. It was still using the stuff from last night. So. I would not pay for news that I had already seen yesterday on the web, on television. I think particularly if they're doing a national publication, they've got to update it all day long.
Yeah, I agree. When I subscribe to the New York Times, or not even subscribe, when I launched the New York Times app, one of the reasons I like it is I know I'm going to get the freshest stories from the New York Times. It's better than a newspaper because I'm getting the most recent edition. It goes back to the days when they used to put out 3 or 4 editions of a newspaper every day.
Right, and Murdoch's own other paid app, the Wall Street Journal app, updates all day long. The competing New York Times app, which you're soon going to have to pay for, also updates all day long. I don't quite see how they think this is even nearly competitive.
I think the bigger issue, too, is the business story, which is that they've sunk $30 million into this already. It's costing $500,000 a week to produce. No, 500 or 50. Sorry, I'm going to have to check that. Jeff Jarvis was in charge of the numbers on this one. I was told there would be no math. But it's crazy money. It's crazy money. And the number of subscribers that they would have to have in order to recoup that much, it's got to be 500K. Yeah, thank you, chat room. It's just the numbers aren't there. And this is either a total throwaway pride thing for Murdoch, or it's got 6 months and it dies quietly.
They did some really interesting things. There is the ability to have articles read to you. There are in-app comments, including audio comments. There's Twitter feeds integrated, so if you're reading a story about someone, their Twitter feed can be included, dynamically updated, or there can be Twitter feeds of hashtags around that topic. So some of it I think they're getting absolutely right. I mean, even things that might seem as lighthearted as crossword and Sudoku puzzles that integrate with Game Center, and then I can play with my friends in there. That's all good. That's all dead on. Well done. The problem is the overall metaphor for me is that they took a magazine, a print magazine that arrives daily on your doorstep, and said, let's replicate that instead of building something more from the ground
Organic.
up.
I mean, if the HuffPo came out with this, you would buy it more than this.
Well, if they did it this way, I don't know if I would. But yeah, I mean, assuming that let's not use HuffPo. I don't want to. But yeah, if a blog that I read, came out with an app,
right?
Yes.
Somebody who had someone who had created an organic. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
If one of the things they made a big point of saying is that the Daily is not an island, that it will link out, you can also share things on Twitter and Facebook. But actually what happens is there are only a few of the stories that you can actually share. Several times I've gone to click on a story or tap on a story and share it, and I get a little error message that says, sorry, that story only lives in the app. And so it is partially an island, or at least there aren't very many bridges over to it.
It just goes to show how old media is desperately trying to innovate, and they realize they can't editorialize their way out of this hole. They have to figure out the medium, and the people who have the money to experiment are doing it, and they will fail miserably. I don't know if this I have no idea whether they'll succeed or fail, but this is a huge gambit, and good on him on trying something different.
I think this is going to be as successful as the paywall for the Times of London. Which is to
Tom,
say,
it was successful.
Exactly, it's not going to be an utter failure. So you're never going to see News Corp coming out and saying it flopped. It's going to do just well enough that they can claim that it's working, but it's not going to blow anybody away.
Yeah.
And we may get a look tomorrow at something from the New York Times called News.me. TechCrunch Eric Schoenfeld has a story up about it, said he's been playing with it. They're taking a different tack where they're aggregating stories from other news sources in addition to the New York Times as an app that is constantly updated with a wealth of different stories and has more of a flipboard feel to it.
But they're the curators, so you feel like you trust
Exactly.
them.
So it's not just
vetted.
random RSS feeds.
Right.
Or even a Twitter feed. So I think that's worth looking at as well.
Well, it does pull from your friends. I mean, it emphasizes things from your friends. That's where it gets the information that it decides to pull. So it is very much Flipboard-like. And what I'd be curious about is if it's a New York Times piece, is it going to give emphasis and preference to New York Times stories if somebody has shared that? That would be very interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm interested to see because you're right. They do say that they'll take any link from your Twitter friends and they'll cobble it together for you. But there's got to be some curation going on to give it that New York Times stamp, and that would be one of the things if it prioritizes New York Times and its partners. Also, along with the developments today with the Daily, Apple has announced that iOS developers can now offer subscriptions. In fact, if you're a magazine or content provider, you have until March 31st to make sure that this is in your app if you offer subscriptions at all. So I'm looking at you, The Economist. Apple says by March 31st, you've got to have subscriptions in there, and
That's
everyone
weird,
could take advantage of this.
I thought you were looking at me. I got really confused.
You're an economist,
It's my nickname
right?
for you.
Okay,
Becky, The Economist.
Okay, I needed to
Worley.
clarify.
We all call
'cause
you that.
I was really confused.
Yeah, so they'll be able to take advantage of the same subscription feature that the Daily has, offer these kind of recurring subscriptions. It's a weird situation going on here where you have them saying you have to offer subscriptions by March 31st if you're a content provider, but you can't use the subscription thing if you're not a content provider. So if you're a gym, you can't have people using the in-app subscription service to subscribe to your gym membership.
Well, and we were wondering if the Daily and the business model around the Daily would provide any insight into clarifying Apple's rules that they've come out with recently about, in-app purchases, books, magazines, Kindle, and this doesn't seem to shed any light on that.
No, it doesn't. You will get a new part of your iTunes account where you can see what subscriptions you signed up with. You can choose to auto-renew, and your card will be charged 24 hours before the end of your particular subscription period. So if you're subscribing monthly, 24 hours before the end of the month, for instance. If the price changes, your subscription will not auto-renew. They'll have to ask you to go in and renew it, so they can't just raise the price on you and keep charging you.
Like that.
But I do like the fact that there will be a place in iTunes for you to manage all those subscriptions. So you can see, remember, what did I sign up for? Because if you get a lot of these little 99-cent type subscriptions, you may sign up for a bunch of them and then have a hard time remembering.
I know. I go through my credit card thing, and I'm like, oh, did I really sign up for that? Although I do keep that recurring charge that tips Leo because he's the boss. I keep that one on my credit card.
Oh, I just have him take that out of my check.
Oh, okay.
Dwight, is there anything going on in your neck of the world like that? Is the Houston Chronicle looking into these sorts of situations?
We're looking at or Hearst, which owns the Houston Chronicle, is looking at is in the middle of building an iPad app that will be used at a lot of its properties. And, I think one of the things that publishers are very interested in, particularly if they have a print product, is being able to sell print subscriptions out of the app, or some kind of bundle where you could buy the app as well as a print subscription. Apple, I think, has frowned on that, but looking at this type of subscription model might allow for that and might make things friendlier for publishers who want to do that. I'm speaking, mostly speculatively in that case. I don't know what's going on in the hush chambers of the Hearst corporate offices, but I do know that that's something that they would like to do.
You don't have level 9 clearance.
I do not have level 9 clearance. I hit the force field when I walk up that flight of stairs.
How well I know that feeling. All right, let's take a quick break. Thank our sponsor, MailRoute, for helping to bring you tech news today. MailRoute is a secure-hosted email filtering service that you can have up and running in minutes. You just edit an MX record or have somebody do it for you. No hardware or software to install. You just route your mail to MailRoute. They take care of all of the spam and virus filtering. and send you back only the real emails. And it works well. I use it. It actually takes away the bad stuff and leaves the good stuff. No false positives. You get to try it out for free as a TWiT listener by going to mailroute.info, and you get 10% off the life of your account. If you do decide to keep it, it's pretty affordable, $30 per user per year for single users. Or if you're a business, small business, you want to put this on your small business account, $2 per user per month. Check them out, mailroute.info. No long-term contracts, just the ability to get rid of spam. Microsoft and Google were having words yesterday. Listen to yesterday's Tech News Today if you'd like to know about the spat between them over search results. Today, they're acting more like friends in the browser land.
This is so weird.
Microsoft says they are going to offer the H.264 plugin for Chrome so that while Chrome is saying they're not going to build H.264 support into the browser anymore, Microsoft will provide an add-in that will do it for them.
For Windows 7 users.
For Windows 7 users, not for OS 10 or Linux users, or open source operating systems of any other flavor, like B.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's just so dominant.
Or Unix.
Yeah.
And likewise, Microsoft is going to have a WebM plugin for Internet Explorer, and Google's making a WebM plugin for Internet Explorer.
Wait, what? This is just, I mean, this seems weird to me. I mean, H.264 is just sort of obtuse in a way anyways, but this whole back and forth doesn't make any sense.
Well, what it's going to mean is that it doesn't really matter that they dropped support. You're going to be able to play it in Chrome. So if you use Chrome, you get video. Dwight, you were telling me that this is something Microsoft said they were going to do, and this is just them fulfilling that promise, right?
Yeah, back when when Google announced that Chrome was no longer going to have H.264, Microsoft essentially said, yeah, we'll build a plugin for that. And plugins will proliferate for all of this. You know, the problem is that I don't think that users should have to worry about plugins. They should just point their browser at a piece of content and it plays. You know, the idea that Google would kind of snatch that out of its browser right now, I think, is not very friendly to the user.
Well, and that's like using Adobe Flash as our video support is the same issue because you have to have a plugin to run Flash. The idea of HTML5's video tag was we're going to make video work like the image tag. So if you have an image tag, it calls up a JPEG, a PNG, or a GIF. You don't care. You don't know. You don't have a plugin installed for it. You don't have a plugin that crashes for it. Your image just shows up. We need to have that for video.
And Flash is supported natively in Chrome. You don't actually need to install the plugin that Adobe offers. You could use what comes with Chrome, although it's not very stable. It crashes a lot. Any Chrome user knows. I've seen that little unhappy face that appears on the screen when it crashes. And I think that you know, if Google is going to remove H.264 support, maybe they should take Flash out too.
Yeah, you know, if we really want to force this issue, I don't know how we're going to get around this. I think we will eventually get to a format or maybe a couple of formats. I guess what I really wish would happen is that the browsers would just do what they did with GIF and JPEG and support both H.264 and WebM and OGG Theora, if you want, natively on all browsers. But
right, absolutely. I think that's if you want to treat your customers right, that's the thing you need to do.
But instead, we've got this axe grinding going on. So the best we can hope for is a little cross-plug-in love like we're getting from Microsoft and Google here. Egypt is back online as of 11:29 or so this morning Egyptian time. Both Facebook and Twitter confirmed that they are up and available inside Egypt. Arbor Networks confirmed traffic levels are back up. We're seeing the opposite of the graph we saw earlier, where the traffic is returning as all the ISPs are back up. We're not sure if this means anything in particular.
It does. I know exactly what it means.
What does it mean?
Well, I'm quoting Conan O'Brien here. He said, if you want people to go home and do nothing, turn the internet back on.
You're saying that President Hosni Mubarak watches Conan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is genius. I mean, and open up all the, make sure that it's flowing fast and that the YouTube videos and the Bieber and all of that, you just need to grab people's attention with something else.
There's also the theory that this is in advance of a crackdown, and they're expecting that the crowds will disperse now that Mubarak has said, I'm not going to run for re-election. I'm going to fix the election for my son to be I'm not going to run for re-election. I'm quitting. I'm out of here. And that's supposed to take the wind out of the sails, I think.
We had a great discussion on This Week in Google about the fact that the internet is becoming synonymous with democracy, and the question that's raised is it a fundamental right? Is this the means of expression these days that really what was solidifying about the internet going off? I think it grabbed the world's attention. Like, whoa. You turn the internet off? Dude, so many people have asked me, how do you turn the internet off?
Senators Joseph Lieberman, Susan Collins, and Tom Carper are having that very conversation, trying to argue that the ability to turn the internet off is not necessarily always a bad thing.
Well, they've lobbied over time that this needs to be from a defense perspective in order to create a defense against cyber attack, that you need to be able to turn the internets off. But
it's the Protecting Cyberspace as a National Asset Act, and it expands presidential powers that already exist, that were given during, I believe, the 1940s, that the president can come in and command national resources in a time of emergency to protect the country. And what they're doing is they're arguing they're narrowing this as regards to the internet and trying to provide a situation where there is accountability of and clarification of what the president can do and what he can't.
And what's the scenario? I mean, are we talking about a DDoS that's coming from domains within the U.S. that's being directed at government agencies that are somehow vulnerable to this? I mean, what are we talking about?
Dwight, do you have a good example of a scenario where this would be necessary?
No.
Yeah, me either.
Thank you.
I think that's part of the problem. You know, when you hear the idea of, okay, we need to turn the internet off to protect it, that's, first of all, in the United States, that's like really hard to do. And I can't think of, with my basic knowledge of kind of internet infrastructure and how security works and how threats work, that you could have something that could be so harmful that you'd want to take away everybody's internet access in order to save it. I mean, that sounds very Vietnam, you got to burn the village to save it. I don't think you have to do that.
I think the only thing I could think is if a critical portion of, let's say, the power grid was infected by a cyber attack, and the president orders that company to turn off all of its connections to the rest of the internet, or orders the internet services that connect to it to shut it off from the internet to contain the outbreak and keep the rest of the power grid from going.
But isn't that what we saw with the SCADA virus in Iran? And what was the name of that worm?
Stuxnet?
Stuxnet. Right. So the point is not, let's turn the whole internet off. How about we actually create secure systems that don't have any connectivity to the main internets?
Well, but the power grid has to be connected to the internet these days. If you want to take advantage of smart grid and you want to have smart meters and the ability to do all these great things you can do, it has to have some sort of internet connectivity.
Well, then that begs the question, would you rather have smart grid, or would you rather have the government turning off the internets?
Well, I think that's a Hobson's choice. I don't think that you have to make that choice. I think you can say, let's just leave it under it was a 1934 act, I've figured out. Under the 1934 act, if the president needs to protect the country, he can go to an industry and say, you need to do this, without giving him the thing that bothers me about this act that Lieberman is pushing is that it would specifically says no judicial oversight.
That's
you need to have somebody watching it. You can't simply say, oh, the president has the ability to flip this switch or take these actions independently. There needs to be at the very least some process that you go through to make sure that it's not being abused.
I can't think about democracy and technology at this deep of a level with this intense of a pizza aroma coming into this room.
That is a really good
That's
point.
something people
it.
watching and listening can't understand.
We need some colorful wavy lines coming in here.
Until we add
to
smell-o-vision.
the smell.
Who's doing that? These are deep thoughts. You can't interrupt that with pizza. What?
Before we move on to the next topic, and while Becky tries to recover herself, I do want to point out that an Egyptian Facebook activist, leader of the group known as April 6 Youth, has been arrested in Cairo, according to Wired.com. Ahmed Maher, 30, has been arrested. We don't know any other details about it, but some of the folks who are part of this social network, this internet democracy, are coming under the gun of the Egyptian authorities. So we'll
and there's
keep
a
an eye on
Google
that as
exec that's missing there.
That's right. We mentioned that
well.
yesterday on the show.
And he hasn't shown up.
T-Mobile USA said today that the Galaxy S 4G smartphone will ship this month. offered some more details on the G Slate tablet by LG as well, and that'll ship later this spring. The LG tablet will have an 8.9-inch 3D capable display, and it's going to require you to wear glasses to get it.
I hate the 3D glasses thing.
Yeah, I know.
Sony was showing off at CES all these products that it had that were 3D. It makes 3D movies, and that consumers can make them themselves and take 3D photographs. And many of them require that you wear glasses. And I just don't see people wanting to do this. And particularly, like, holding a little tablet, and then, I got to put my glasses on. That's just not very friendly, I don't think, to consumers.
No, especially since tablet is mobile and you're out on the road. What are you going to have those things like parked on your head the whole time?
Yeah. Right. What I could see, if this, God forbid that this becomes accepted and people just start wearing these things. I have glasses that in the sun darken, and I wonder if you might end up with prescription 3D glasses that when they're confronted with the type of display, they automatically start doing that shutter thing.
The instead of what is it called, solar optics or
polarization?
Yeah,
is it?
It's a 3D sensitive glasses.
Well, and we also saw those.
I like that idea.
Yeah, well, we saw those glasses where you tap and they're battery operated.
Oh,
but
right.
You tap them and then they switch into bifocals, basically. So what if you could tap to have your regular glasses turn into 3D? But I mean, these are all workarounds to the fundamental thing, which is it's a impediment. It is absolutely a barrier to entry.
But don't worry, you'll also be able to shoot 3D video with the G Slate in 1080p, because it'll come with a
dual lens camera.
It'll come with a dual lens 5-megapixel camera with flash.
Whoa. Okay.
So you'll be able to inflict this on others as well and make them put on their glasses to watch your boring home movies.
Well, yes and no, but if you have already made the investment into a 3D TV and you don't want to purchase something like the Sony Bloggy, which is a 3D camera, then perhaps you would get a tablet that has this built in. You might review your videos or edit them on the tablet with the glasses, and then you would export them in some sort of 3D format that you could play on your big screen. That, if you're creating an ecosystem where people have bought into the 3D world, then maybe.
What I want to know is you can record in 1080p and the tablet can output in 1080p, but it can only play back 720p on the screen. So if you've recorded it in 1080p 3D and you play it back on the 720p 3D screen, you're losing out. You're
but this
losing
supports
resolution.
my theory, which is then you would export in 1080p and you would be able to play it on your big screen.
Let's finish up with some chip trouble. Intel is running into the ramifications of the problem we mentioned with Sandy Bridge with the chipset, not with the chip itself, not with the processor, but with the chipset. First signs of trouble came, Dwight, you mentioned HP has canceled an event.
Yeah, they were going to show off some business notebooks later this month and have decided not to do that. They said the event will be rescheduled. I don't think they necessarily said Sandy Bridge is the reason, but certainly they would want to use the most recent chips in these products, and that's a pretty good guess.
Yeah, it seems toxic in terms of a marketing perspective. You don't want to touch it until it gets fixed.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, Apple is supposed to be, is expected soon to release new versions of the MacBook Pro that's due for a refresh, and they usually grab the hottest Intel chips to use in it. And how is this going to affect Apple, which has been rumored to be offering a relatively aggressive redesign of the MacBook Pro?
I have been waiting for
that.
I've been waiting for that aggressive redesign to replace Martha Jones here, my current MacBook Pro. If it gets delayed by Sandy Bridge, I'm going to be at wit's end.
What lady will you go to then? Martha Jones and Sandy Bridge?
I'll be stuck with Martha.
Apparently.
If you are a customer who did buy a Sandy Bridge processed machine that had the I think it's Cougar Point, is that the name of the chipset? And are wondering what to do with it, HP, Samsung, Asus, and Gigabyte have all said that you can return for either a replacement or refund your device. Intel is backing all that up. Asus and Gigabyte said that the return policy means you should take it back to where you bought it, the original place of purchase, and then they'll take care of it from there. So you can get it replaced. Time now for the News Fuse. The latest craze in the fight against piracy is to have the U.S. Customs Office seize a bunch of domain names and pretend that they've shut down the sites. With the Super Bowl less than a week away, U.S. Customs has shut down a new set of internet domain names for sites that linked to live sports broadcasts on the web. As usual, the underlying servers were not affected. Many of the sites are already back up and running at new non-U.S. controlled addresses. So really, this is just bad news for U.S. registrars.
More rumors that Amazon is getting ready for their online streaming service to roll out. Citing unnamed sources, the Los Angeles Times reports that Amazon initially wanted to launch its streaming service in early February, but due to difficulty acquiring content. We've heard that before. The publication sources say Amazon has pushed the launch back to as early as late February. Ooh, this sounds a lot like Spotify's trouble in the U.S.,
Welcome to the club, Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
More evidence arrives that the next iPad, expected to come out this spring, won't come with a Retina class display at all. The staff at 9 to 5 Mac claims to have gotten its hands on one of the displays slated for the iPad 2, fresh out of China, they say, from an iPhone repair shop. Cult of Mac looked at it and said that part number is a 1024 by 768 resolution screen, but it is thinner, and we're expecting that it's probably amazingly magically thin.
So we won't have the whole Retina dilemma anymore. We'll just say it's good enough at that resolution.
For now.
Okay. 2 dating sites just hooked up.
Oh, it's love.
Yeah. Match.com, part of IAC, says it's acquired OkCupid for $50 million in cash, plus more payments based on future performance. OkCupid, which is mostly ad-supported, targets younger adults, creating low barriers to entry to participants. Once users get a taste of online dating for free, the hope is to introduce them to pay sites like Match.com and Chemistry.com. So when you're young and you're hooking up all the time, we'll give it to you for free, but when you get old and picky, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, if you want that long-lasting date.
Right.
Gamers on the NeoGAF forum are a bit excited over claims that Sony has put a rootkit in its latest PS3 firmware upgrade. That's a blast from the past, a Sony rootkit. User NA cited developer Mathiel, I don't know how to pronounce Mathieulh, but there you go, alleging that a rootkit in firmware version 3.56 allows Sony to remotely execute code on the PS3 when users connect to the PlayStation Network. The alleged rootkit can be used by Sony, he says, for verifying system files or searching for homebrew games.
Get this, whistleblower site WikiLeaks has been nominated for the 2011 Nobel Peace Prize. This by a Norwegian politician who cited WikiLeaks' role in freedom of speech. News agency NTB reported all this Wednesday. They say WikiLeaks is one of this century's most important contributors to freedom of speech and transparency. Parliamentarian Snorre Valen said all of this in his nomination. That's going to get controversial fast.
Oh, yeah. They won't win, I have a feeling.
Even the nomination, though, is craziness.
Because all the diplomats who vote on this sort of thing are
they don't want to
leaked.
Yeah.
Chrome's usage share for January has made it into the double digits. The browser was used by 10.7% of web users last month, up from 9.98 in December. It was a good month for Safari as well, up to 6.3% from 5.89. Internet Explorer was the big loser, reaching a new all-time low, but dominant still, 56%.
Comcast announced that the first group of trial users have been activated on their IPv6 native dual-stack solution. This according to Comcast, who says these users can now access content and services natively over both IPv6 and IPv4. This means that users don't need to use any IPv6 or IPv4 tunneling, translating, or NAT solutions. They can access IPv6 and IPv4 directly at high speed. And I like this word especially, Tom, in an unencumbered fashion.
Yeah.
Don't let IPv6 encumber you. Don't let it.
The whole thing is going to encumber us for a few more years, I have a feeling. On to the calendar.
Verizon iPhone 4 orders will be taken tomorrow. That's right, February 3rd.
Starting at 3 a.m. A lot of you have already passed that deadline.
Yeah, well,
by the time you listen to this.
The release date's February 10th, right?
Yeah, so if you're a current Verizon customer, you can make your order tomorrow.
Got it.
But you still can't get it until the 10th.
General sales, 7 a.m. on February 10th. You can
7 a.m.? They're opening the stores. Do you think it's going to be lines, Dwight?
It might be, but I don't think they'll be very long. I don't think they'll last all day like the original iPhone. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the Verizon store lines look like when the iPhone 5 comes out. I think they'll be quite long then.
Yeah, I think if we see the 4G version, that'll definitely zing people out. It's interesting.
4G. No 4G.
No?
4G. Nope,
No?
I don't think so.
What about
Apple doesn't move that fast.
What about an AT&T HSPA Plus iPhone that gets called 4G?
I wouldn't be surprised if that's 5.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't. I think that's got to be right.
Because they're getting away with calling pretty much anything 4G these days.
Yeah, and you know what? If Apple launched a 4G Verizon phone anywhere in this year, I mean, maybe for holiday 2011, they would come off like a bunch of jerks. I think they would lose a lot of customer loyalty unless they did. You know what they normally do in that case is they give you the cheap upgrade. If you bought the first one, they'll give you the free upgrade or like nominal upgrade. So maybe.
Another reason there's not going to be a line. Best Buy just announced that they're going to be selling the Verizon iPhone. So you're going to have more places to get it on February 10th, right from the get-go.
Yeah. AT&T is adding an extra 2 gigabytes to phone tethering plans, launching a mobile hotspot app on February 13th. It all heats up. And tech giants enabling IPv6 on World IPv6 Day in June. We talked about they're having the big announcement sometime, I think it's this week, and then in March they're going to do something. But IPv6 Day is officially set for June. Will you come to work, Tom, or will you?
No, I'll be out partying.
I think so.
I'll be getting my IPv6 router going, surfing Facebook and Yahoo.
Totally unencumbered.
Yes.
I like it.
I'm on Comcast. All right, let's go to the voicemails. 260-TNT show. Chad in Fresno giving us a call with his thoughts on the whole Sony Reader situation where it was kicked out or rejected from the iTunes App Store.
Hey, TNT crew. This is Chad, the database administrator in Fresno. I was listening to a conversation today regarding in-app purchases and the kerfuffle between the Sony folks and the Apple folks and how that affected Amazon and Kindle. My thought was, well, how does that affect apps that are specifically for shopping, like the Amazon app or Newegg's app, where you actually go through the app and purchase items in their website? That seems like a natural sort of next step in regard to this in-app purchase embargo. So I just wanted your guys' thoughts on that. I hope all is well. Talk to you later.
Yeah,
maybe probably not. All right.
No, you talk to us later anytime.
We have your phone number now, Chad. We'll be calling.
And you can talk to us in your car.
I think
you can yell at us.
He makes a good point. Yeah. Apple certainly won't go to Amazon's Windows Shop or Gilt or any of those and say, you can't have people order things without giving us a 30% cut.
But can I ask a question? Doesn't it flip you out into the browser when you're in the actual purchase?
Not in Windows Shop, it doesn't. Huh. No, you order it right from within the app.
Huh.
And I think that's true in the Newegg app, too, also keeps you in it.
Yeah. No,
yeah, so, I mean...
And that's a total... there's this whole thing about you can't buy real-world goods.
But again, it's the difference between content and stuff.
But there's an actual clause that says stuff.
That you can't buy stuff in the iTunes developer agreement?
I'm gonna go find it.
Oh,
you know what?
That's bad news.
I could be wrong, but I swear
Dwight, you're right. They want to get their 30% of everything.
Well, when during the iPad event, they kept referring to the ability to subscribe. They talked about publishers and content. They were very specific about that. They didn't address the stuff issue, but it's certainly very possible that is exactly what it means and that they want to limit it to publishers.
I thought Chad was full of crazy when he called, but maybe not.
Chad's loaded with logic, and he can talk to us anytime.
All right, let's move on to the emails to tnt@twit.tv.
Brian S. writes in, again, about in-app purchases. I'm guessing that another part of the terms for developers is that you can't sell in-app content for more than you would outside the app.
I bet that's true, yeah.
Because this would be a clear way to funnel people to purchase outside. He says, if so, those bleeps. If not, Sony, Amazon, Barnes & Noble could raise iOS in-app prices by 30 to 40% to minimize their loss or supplement what they're siphoning off to Apple. So if you want to get the best price, buy it from the website. Excellent point.
Apple's not going to allow that either.
Nah.
All right. Finally, Sharp writes in and says, well, one of the DSL resellers here in Canada has come up with a novel approach to moving large amounts of data in response to the CRTC's allowing 25 megabyte caps to be put on all the connections. It's the kind of solution, says Sharp, that takes us back to the 1990s. See, please please see page 2 at acanac.com, and we'll have the whole link in our show notes. Essentially, the great solution is to start physically shipping hard drives between the consumer and ISP by courier to avoid ridiculous overusage fees now in place. Way to move ahead, Canada. Next, we'll be throttling real traffic on the roads to 8 miles per hour to 1910 levels in an effort to save lives and save fuel. This is This will be the last email you receive from me from Canada. I will be upgrading to a messenger pigeon service starting next week.
You know, this is really undermining our general belief here at the TWiT Cottage that Canadians are smarter than us. I mean, this is really undermining that philosophy, and it's shaking my world.
There's a review due by what, March 1st, I think. I have a feeling this policy is toast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big uprising.
Dwight, Silverman, a pleasure as always to be on a show with you, and thanks for being on Tech News Today.
Well, thanks for having me. This was a blast. It was kind of like doing TWiT on speed.
Yes,
I liked it.
It's a high speed TWiT. That's how we like
to be our new tagline.
Yeah. Did you have a
TWiT
thought?
on speed.
If you have a thought, get it in quick before someone pipes the smell of pizza in here.
Make sure to let people know where they can find your work online.
They can check it out at blogs.cron.com/techblog, and they can also follow me on Twitter at dsilverman.
And you can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can give us a call. 260-TNT-SHOW is the phone number. Leave us a voicemail like Chad did. Maybe you'll break some news. Or send us an email, tnt@twit.tv, and we will read them all and read a few on the show, too. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.